Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Namah Shivaya. Om 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 Namah Shivaya.
Comedy similarly derives from Komodo, a festival to ensure the fertility of the tribe. Indeed, the difference between drama and ritual depends almost entirely on what the audience is told on the way in to the scene of the action. Move a solemn high mass into the Ethel Barrymore Theater. Tell everybody it is an experimental and they will experience it as theater. Stage waiting for Godot in a cathedral on Monday, Thursday, and it will function as a totally acceptable sacrament. And nobody will have any doubts about who Godot is. Altered States, ladies and gentlemen. William Hurt, Drew Barrymore, their first movie.
Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya.
Altered States, 1980, film from 1980.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Marked the film debut of William Hurt and Drew Barrymore.
Om Namah
The plot of this film involved Edward Jessup, a Columbia University psychopathologist studying schizophrenia, and begins to think that our other states of consciousness are as real as our waking state. He begins experimenting with sensory deprivation using a flotation tank, aided by two like-minded researchers, Arthur Rosenberg and Mason Parrish. At a faculty party, he meets fellow whiz kid and his future wife, Emily. 7 years later, Edward and Emily have two daughters, are on the brink of divorce, and reunite with the couple who first introduced him. When Edward hears of the Hinchi tribe, whose members experience shared hallucinatory states, he travels to Mexico to participate in their ceremony. During the climb up into the Hinchi Hill country, a plateau covered in spectacular mushroom-shaped vintifacts, Edward is told by his guide, Eduardo Echeverria, that the Hinchi use in their ceremonies a potion containing the sacred mushroom Amida muscaria and the shrub Sinichichi, which they are collecting for next year's ceremonies. The tribe calls Hemia salifolia by a Hinchi name meaning first primordial flower in recognition of the deep memory states which it can evoke. An indigenous elder, the brujo, is seen with a root, presumably intended to be a hemia root, in his hand, which he asks Edward to hold. Before cutting it in order to add some drops of blood to the mixture he is preparing, immediately after consuming the mixture, Edward experiences bizarre, intense hallucinations, including one of the petrification and subsequent erosion by blown sand of Emily and himself. The following morning, Edward leaves the Hinchy Plateau under a cloud, having killed, while in his intoxicated state, a large specimen of the Hinchy sacred monitor lizard, which is a petroglyph shown in the dream sequence, shows that they believe to have given them the sacred mushroom in the mythic past. He returns to the U.S. with a sample of the Hinchy potion for analysis by his colleagues and further self-experimentation, and continues taking it in order to take his exploration of altered states of consciousness to a new and higher level. When toxic concentrations of the substance make increased dosage dangerous, Edward returns to sensory deprivation, believing it will enhance the effects of the substance at his current dose. Repairing a disused tank in a medical school, Edward uses it to experience a series of increasingly drastic visions, including one of early hominidae. Monitored by his colleagues, Edward insists that his visions have externalized. Emerging from the tank, his mouth bloody, frantically writing notes because he is unable to speak, Edward insists on being x-rayed before he reconstitutes. A radiologist inspecting the x-ray says they belong to a gorilla. In later experiments, Edward experiences actual physical biological devolution. At one stage, he emerges from the isolation tank as a feral and curiously small-statured, light-skinned caveman, going on a rampage through some streets in town before returning to his natural form. Despite his colleagues' concern, Edward stubbornly continues. In the final experiment, Edward experiences a more profound regression, transforming into an amorphous mass of conscious primordial matter. An energy wave released from the experiment stuns Edward's colleagues and destroys his tank. Emily arrives to find a swirling maelstrom where the tank had been. She searches into the vortex for Edward, finding him as he is on the brink of becoming a non-physical form of proto-consciousness and possibly disappearing from our version of reality altogether. His friends bring Edward home and hoping that the transformations will end. Watched over by Emily, Edward begins to uncontrollably regress again, the transformations no longer requiring the intake of first flower or sensory deprivation. Urging Edward to fight the change, Emily grabs his hand, immediately being enveloped by the primordial energy emanating from Edward. The sight of Emily apparently being consumed by the energy stirs the human consciousness in Edward's devolving form. He fights the transformation and returns to his human form. Edward embraces Emily as she returns to normal. That was a synopsis of the film Altered States, where William Hurt and Drew Barrymore first made their cinematic debut. Let's all ponder this video, and let's all think about our own altered states, that primordial ooze that's just behind the facade, the veneer of our civilized appearance. Let's just all think about that for a moment. Namaste, namaskaram.